Thank you for being here.
I would say my pleasure, except we've topped over 230,000 people have died of the coronavirus so far. And that's what the president is trying to change the subject from, to talk about people voting in their cars and the rest, rather than talking about people dying from his miserable failure when it comes to addressing a pandemic in our country.
Well, Madam Speaker, I suppose that goes to the first question, which is, what do you see as the stakes tomorrow?
The stakes? Oh, our democracy is at stake. That's what is at stake tomorrow. And again, I believe in the American people. I want them all to vote, however they vote, but I want their vote to be respected. And it should be respected by the President of the United States, first and foremost. But we have no reason to think that that will be the case. But again, we feel confident. I was on the phone, of course, constantly with with the candidates, and both incumbents who are running and candidates in our red to blue. And there's a great deal of confidence on the ground. So I feel confident that we will win the House. It's very possible we will win the Senate. And on January 20th, Joe Biden will be inaugurated president of the United States.
A confident stance. You know, Madam Speaker, you're a leader of your whole party. You're a leader of the entire House. But you also, as I think you know, are seen as a big leader and barrier breaker for women in politics, rightly so. And so I did want to ask you about something. Again, I've mentioned this to viewers. We're learning more than we usually know earlier with this record-breaking vote. And so we're seeing women outnumbering men here in what is now 90-plus million votes. 53% of them are women, or 46 million total compared to 38 million for men. I just wanted to get your reaction on that potentially record-breaking number if it continues into tomorrow.
Well, I've always said that women are very smart voters, and women of color especially very smart voters. But I do think that they're exercising great judgment. They care about our country's future. That's all about the children. And anyone who sees the performance of the president, whether it's degrading the air that our children breathe, undermining the education they received, assault on the economic security of their families, opposition to protecting them from gun violence. The list goes on and on. So women make judgments based on what it means to them in their lives. And they see very clearly that Joe Biden's vision for our country, his knowledge of the issues, his connection to people and their concerns is something that is making a difference in this election. Hence so many women voting and so many women voting for Joe Biden.
Yeah, and it's really striking because we know in general and from last time, women voters more skeptical of Donald Trump. So if those numbers continue, that could have a huge impact tomorrow. We're all waiting on that. We did put something together looking at the way that you, as mentioned, as a top Democrat in government, have dealt with this very unusual president. There have been Trump-Pelosi clashes. Let's take a brief look.
I think Nancy Pelosi is doing a terrible disservice to the people of our country.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting. I don't hate anyone and always prayed for the president.
God bless America. Thank you very much.
What did you think of Trump's speech tonight?
I tore it up.
Nancy is a mess. The Democratic Party is a mess.
The president is afraid of the American people. He knows that on the legit, it'd be hard for him to win.
Here we are, election eve. Do you see him as the most challenging, as the least legitimate of any president you've had to deal with? And what do you say to voters who are watching this? And you've heard it. It may not be true, but you've heard some people say, gosh, I don't know the difference. I haven't paid attention. What's the difference between all these options and parties?
Well, first, let me just say that this president, of all the presidents I've seen and studied in American history, is the most insecure. He knows he can't win by letting the people speak their voices, so he's trying to disrupt the election. We are concerned about foreign powers coming in and undermining the integrity of our elections. He is undermining the integrity of our election himself. And why? Because he's a very insecure person. That's why he takes cheap shots at everyone. He's really projecting his own weaknesses. And he recognizes them because he has them. But let's forget about him. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what this election is about. Elections are always about the future, about how we make the future better for our children. And when he talks about who loves America, who loves America, who loves our land from sea to shining sea, and wants to protect it, not Donald Trump. Who loves America? By and large, a nation of immigrants, the beautiful and constant reinvigoration of America, of newcomers to our country. Who denigrates them? Donald Trump. Who loves our Constitution and all of the rights contained therein and the beautiful genius of the separation of powers? Not Donald Trump. He undermines our Constitution. And who loves our values as a country, a beacon of hope to the world? Not a president who's taking babies out of the arms of their parents without any thought of sending them home. That's not who we are as a country. So this election has a clear contrast, and a person so completely different, so confident in his beliefs in our country, so connected to the concerns, hopes, and dreams of the American people, so authentic about what he stands for, and that is Joe Biden. So it's going to be a great day for our country. We will contend with the president's skullduggery. He's actually, in so many ways, just trying to change the subject away from the fact that he has been, again, a total failure in terms of this pandemic, among other things. But the fact is that the people will speak tomorrow, and their voices must be heard. Their vote is their voice. And that is what a democracy is about. It's not about undermining that voice or vote because of your own insecurity as president, because you know you can't win unless you disrupt and cause chaos.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.